Sadiq White, he's healthy and ready to go. How's he going to factor into this rotation? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. Thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Of course, we're always free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, we are joined by Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House. We're going to go over questions that still remain with Syracuse basketball following their exhibition victory over Buffalo. We're also going to give our final thoughts on that game as well. But we got to start with the big news of the day. It was tweeted by John Rothstein over on Twitter. And that is that high-end four-star recruit, Sadiq White for Syracuse basketball. He did not play in the exhibition game against Buffalo, but guess what, folks? He's okay. He's healthy. He's ready to go, and he will be available for tomorrow's exhibition game against Pace, and we'll go over how he could factor into this rotation this upcoming season. All that and more here on today's edition of Locked On Syracuse. And before we get to everything, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Neil, I was really looking forward to watching Sadiq White in the exhibition opener. Obviously, we saw Kiyan Anthony make his debut. We saw Luke Fennell make his debut, but obviously Sadiq White is a big-time freshman coming in for the Orange. So what do you make of this news, and how do you view his fit in the rotation?
Well, as always, Jackson, thanks for having me on, brother. Appreciate it. I take exhibitions with somewhat of it's you looking to see who's getting time, who's doing what, but I don't get too hung up positive or negative one way or the other. The larger issue for that, area to monitor for me would be, is Sadiq going to be, fully healthy in time for the actual season, which starts on Monday at home against Binghamton. And it sounds like he'll be available on Wednesday against Pace, the Pace Setters, that's like the coolest name ever, right? The Pace Setters. What does he bring to the rotation? Obviously that's a little TBD because he hasn't played in a game yet, but as you mentioned, high 4-star, just outside 5-star range in the 2025 class. It's from Charlotte, played his senior year at IMG, which is where Donnie Freeman played, and others that have gone on to Syracuse played in the past. Just outside, I think he's highest ranking. I don't remember which recruiting service was, but he was like 26. He was inside the top 20 for a bit, but anyway, he's inside the top 30, well inside the top 30. And I think for Syracuse, the biggest thing that he's going to bring, at least initially, is defense. He's hyper athletic. He gets above the rim. I don't think he's a great outside shooter, but I hope I'm proven wrong. But he can score around the rim and in the mid range. But it's on the defensive end. It's rebounding. And he's a lot of has been said of his from other players or from the coaching staff. Even though he's a true freshman and hasn't played a collegiate game yet, he's bringing like real high energy and leadership, and like those are qualities that are. Well, all the guys should be high energy, or so to speak. But I think he could be a real leader of this team. Maybe not initially. I mean, this is JJ Starling's team and Nate George and Donnie. But it'll be interesting to see how much. And we talked about this on one of your last pods. How much time he plays? Is he playing straight up at the 4? Is he playing some at the 3? Is he playing some at the 5? But yeah, he's gonna come off the bench initially. But I think he's gonna bring a lot to the table, especially on the defensive end for a team that, as we've talked about, struggled on the defensive end last year.
When I saw this news, and by the way, I wasn't necessarily worried about Sadiq White and his health for the season opener, because I understand that any sort of minor tweak or minor injury, you got to hold him out for an exhibition game. This is not the Final Four. This is not March Madness. This is not even a regular season game. This game straight up doesn't count. So any other nicks and bruises whatsoever, I mean, stay on the side of caution. Just hold him out. Get him ready. If he only plays like 5-10 minutes against Pace tomorrow, that's totally fine. But just have him ready to go for the next game. But for the exhibition game against Buffalo, I keep going back to the second half when Syracuse had a big lead and Adrian Autry subbed in most of his starters, and then the starters proceeded to nearly cough up the entire lead in general. It was a 4-point game with about a minute to go. You know who I think could have helped stop that from happening?
Sadiq White.
Sadiq White. You know why? Because A, he's a good defender. That's what we have been told about him. So he could have prevented more Buffalo baskets.
Right.
Great. Because Syracuse at that point, I will acknowledge they weren't shooting as well, but I haven't really necessarily brought up the shooting when it comes to it, but they were not shooting as well.
Right.
So not shooting as well, you obviously need to play better defense to counteract that. So that's one way Sadiq White helped in the exhibition game. And number two, it's what you said about his energy. He's really balanced. He's really athletic. He's going to run up and down the floor. And overall, he seems like someone who can be a really awesome hype man, but I don't mean it in some sort of demeaning way. Like, he's a really talented player that Syracuse is getting, but he could also kind of be that spark plug for Syracuse. So have these moments where it looks like it's just dull on the court, and I'm not going to sit here and say they don't care, but it looks like they're kind of just going through the motions.
It's a little stagnant.
Like Sadiq White in the game, and all of a sudden, you know, I can really snap my fingers, but you get the point. It's like, all right, everyone wakes up, because this is someone who's going to go absolutely nuts on the floor, run up and down. Overall, Sadiq White back, healthy for Syracuse. Obviously, great news for the Orange moving forward. Neil, I want to get your thoughts on the exhibition game. Your boy Tyler Betsey, he looked pretty good out.
I mean, everyone just needs to drop comments and on the show saying how smart I am. No, not really, because I'm usually not that smart at all. No, I just, like, when we talked on one of your last pods, I'm high on Tyler again. Having covered him for Loud House when he was being recruited by Syracuse, I just, you know, I probably even saw some of his games at showcases where it was available on streaming or maybe TV. He played at St. Thomas More, but yeah, I just think he's kind of fits the mold, kind of like with Sadiq. I don't know. I assume Tyler probably weighs a little bit more just because he's a year older, but like they're like what, 6'8", 6'9"6'9", just long, athletic. And Tyler, I know he didn't shoot well last year, but he barely played at Cincinnati. So like I kind of just like whatever. But the fact that he scored 14 points, I think it was 5 of 7 from the field, 3 of 3 from deep. Again, I don't at least initially see him starting, but I see him as being the number one guy off the bench, potentially. I mean, or Sadiq or Kiyan or Swar. I mean, who knows? Who knows? But I don't know. I think Betsey is, but that's the thing is if Betsey's the first guy off the bench, and we talked about this, recently, who's he subbing in for? Is he subbing in for Nate King? Because Nate Kings was 3 or 4 for shooting the ball. But yeah, I think whatever. Regardless of how the minutes are divided up, I think Betsey, if he plays, and I'm not saying he's going to go 3 of 3 from deep every game because he's not going to shoot 1,000, he's not going to make every shot he makes from deep. But I think he'll be real instrumental in this team. I've said it from the beginning, and I know Donnie Freeman talked about him being a sleeper, an X factor or whatever, but he's a good player. He's a good player. That was a really good portal win, and that was late in the cycle, and it kind of came out of nowhere because I usually hear rumblings about certain guys they're going after, and it just, I don't know if Joe Tipton or whoever broke it from Rivals or 24/7 Sports, and it was like Tyler Betsey commits to Syracuse, and I'm like, what? Where did that come from? I didn't even know they were talking another one. Yeah.
He wasn't on the radar.
So anyway, yeah. So I think Tyler will be a key part of this team.
What I would say on the podcast a lot last year, sorry to bring up last year, but I'm not talking about in terms of the results of the team.
Yeah.
But I would frequently bring this up when it came to players playing time.
Right.
If you can shoot, you will play. If you can defend, you will play.
Agreed.
If you can't do either of those things,
you won't.
Then you better be really excellent in other areas of the game. You basically better be JJ Starling, who can still score 15 to 20 points.
Yeah,
so he's
mid-range,
positive on the floor.
Yep.
Otherwise, what's your value? If you can't shoot and you can't defend, what are you? Right. Are you a rebounder? Well, that would require you to really be a center. Are you a center in that case? If you're not a center, I don't know what your value is if you can't shoot and you can't defend. So when it comes to Tyler Betsey, if he can shoot, Neil, I don't necessarily know if he's going to be the quote unquote first guy off the bench.
Yeah, it doesn't
But if
matter.
he can
Whatever.
shoot,
Yeah.
he will play. It's
Yeah, I
as
agree.
simple as that. If you can
I agree.
shoot, you will play, because I've never heard a basketball team ever say, we got too many shooters. We got too many guys that can shoot the basketball at a high level. We need to sub those players out, and we need to put in players that can't shoot the ball. Have you ever heard that before? Or maybe I'm going nuts. Maybe this is one of those moments where people will comment and say that I'm crazy. I get that a lot. That's okay. But you can shoot.
Opinions vary. No, I agree with you, Jackson. And I was just looking up here because I didn't have the box score memorized. But so Tyler, he scored in the 14, but he played 20 minutes. So he played one more minute than Nate Kings, who's a starter. But then obviously the other 4 main starters, and then Kiyan was right there as well. So yeah, regardless of who's like first, as long as William Kyle if he's getting 10 and 9 every game, like I'll take that. But I feel like if you're putting the center spot to the side, so to speak, in terms of reserves, I feel like the 3 main, if you're going to have like a core 8-man rotation, as the season progresses, it's going to be those 5, and then Kiyan, Sadiq, and Tyler Betsey. We'll see, but that's kind of where I think it is. Yeah, no, it's Tyler was impressive. He was good. We'll see if that continues.
Well, coming up, we'll continue talking about this rotation for Syracuse basketball. So stick with us here on Locked On Syracuse. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Jackson Holzer, Locked On Syracuse. That's Neil Adler from inside the Loud House. We just went over Sadiq White, his role in the team now that he is healthy, thankfully, for the Orange this upcoming season. We're also giving our thoughts on Syracuse's exhibition victory over Buffalo on Saturday night. They won 76-66. And Neil, we left off talking about William Kyle. I was pleasantly surprised by William Kyle. I was not necessarily a hater of the move.
No, just skeptical.
I was skeptical of him because I know he was good in a mid-major school. Right. I get that. I think it was South Dakota State, if I remember correctly. But last year at UCLA, for one reason or another, he didn't really carve out a significant role while he was there. And people kept saying, well, he's a great defender. He's a great defender. Okay, well, when I look at the advanced metrics, why do they say he's not a good defender? I would just point it out, okay? I wasn't going to say he's a bad defender. I just didn't understand it, right?
Yeah.
My first takeaway of William Kyle is he's pretty much as advertised, minus the fact that Evan Maya says he's a bad defender, because I thought he looked pretty good out there. What were your thoughts on him?
Yeah, so he had 10 points, 9 boards. I think he had a block. He had a couple turnovers, but so did the whole team, and that's definitely, I'm sure, something you and I will talk about. But didn't he have 5 offensive rebounds? I think he had 5, and they had 12 overall.
He's a very active player.
Yeah, so I'll take that. Yes, please. Absolutely. I was thinking about this the other day when we were talking. I don't know if we talked about averages for the year, but for William Kyle, first of all, stay healthy, don't get in a lot of foul trouble. But if you can get 1 or 2 blocks a game and 8 points, 6 boards, 10 points, 8 boards, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But and then just, help out, defensively and be a rim protector and all that. Yeah, I'll take that. I think, and I said this the other day, I feel like Syracuse could be a good offensive rebounding team, which isn't always their MO. Well, it's not always their MO to just be a good rebounding team in general, but with these kinds of athletes like Kyle and maybe even Soiree, if, depending on how much he plays, but Sadiq White and Betsey and Donnie Freeman, if this team isn't shooting that great from the outside, I think they have a real opportunity to get, a lot of offensive rebounds and a lot of second chance points. And I always look at those other kind of secondary categories, like second chance points and, points off turnovers and fast break, so yeah, to answer your question, I enjoyed William Kyle's performance on Saturday for sure.
And one of the concerns about William Kyle going into the year was the fact that he's only 6'9". He's not a traditional size for a center. But after watching him, albeit for one exhibition game against Buffalo, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be a huge problem come ACC play. And here's why. He's super athletic and he can jump. So, like, what would you prefer? Someone that's, I don't know, 7 feet tall but can't jump at all? Or would you prefer someone that's 6'9" but he can jump through the roof? And the way I view it is, well, how high can you get up? So I don't really care if you're only 6'9". If you have a significant vertical, well, then you can pretty much hang with anyone. And before you come at me saying, well, I'm not you specifically, Neil, but before maybe our listeners or viewers come at me with a counter, like how are they going to do against Cameron Boozer at Duke? I'm going to let you in on a little secret. No one can contain Cameron Boozer or any of those big time players. It's got nothing to do with William Kyle. It's got everything to do with the opponent. But I think William Kyle, he can be serviceable. Am I expecting 10 and 9 from him every single game? No, I think that would mostly be considered a bonus. But can we get the 9 rebounds? Can we get maybe 5 points?
Yeah.
Can we avoid him getting to the free throw line? Because, oh my goodness, he's a terrible free throw shooter. That is bad. I'll take 5 and 8 a game with a couple of blocks in there as well. He does take some chances as well defensively, I will say. But as long as your rotations are also in place and you understand how William Kyle plays,
all about help side,
that should be
communicating
totally fine.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yep.
He was, I think, 4-7 from the 4-7 from the free throw line. 4-7,
which is surprising. I thought he was worse, but 4-7 is not terrible given his form. I mean, it's a bad form. I don't get it. But
it's not good.
If it's going to go in, and I know it sounds crazy, but given his form, if it's going to go in 57% of the time, I'll take it.
You'll take it?
The way he shoots, it should be a 40% free throw shooter. I don't really understand it, but you know what? That's not terrible. So William Kyle. Big win for Syracuse basketball. Tyler Betsey, big winner for the exhibition game. Neil, what other questions, though, do you have about this Syracuse team moving forward?
Well, I still think that, again, it's been one exhibition game against a Buffalo team that has been really bad the last couple of years. It's not the NATO, it's Buffalo from numerous years ago that actually beat Syracuse one time and won like 30-plus games. So, that, you got to take it with a grain of salt and no disrespect to Pace on Wednesday, but they're a Division II team, although they were 24-8 last year, pretty good Division II team. So I'm still going to be, in the early part of the season, and after a few games, they got to go to Vegas and play Houston and Kansas. So they'll know right away pretty well. The defense, the center spot, the turnovers, dude. And I know it was an exhibition, and I know it's like the first exhibition and it's the first like unofficial game, but whatever. But come on, man, 17 turnovers, really? I mean, that's just that crushed this team last year. The turnovers and getting, I don't remember the exact margin, but how many points off turnovers they were getting versus how many they were allowing. Interestingly enough, in this game against Buffalo, I think they had 17 turnovers and Buffalo had 16 points off turnovers, but they only had 3 fast break points. So, I'll be looking at Syracuse's transition defense. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's all this. It's not rocket science. It's all kind of similar stuff, but definitely defense, the center spot, 3-point shooting, turnovers. And how are they going to shoot? They shot well against Buffalo. They shot 48% from the field. I think just under 41% from deep, and like 70% from the free throw line. But are they going to be a good 3-point shooting team? Who's going to be the main 3-point shooters? You would assume Nate Kings. You can see Betsey in there. You can see Donnie Freeman. Is JJ going to get his shot up? A little better, probably not. Nate George, what's he going to do from deep? Kiyan, I think, was 2 of 4. So and those are all, kind of all the main areas. If I had to talk about like questions or the biggest areas concern, I'd still talk about the defense. I talk about turnovers, giving up big leads, getting off to slow starts, getting blown out by better competition. I mean, all of the stuff that from last year. But I think this is a better roster, and we'll kind of wait and see. But and obviously, and health. I mean, gosh, health. I mean, yeah. Let's see.
Always a big question.
Yeah, and it happens to every team. But let's see JJ and Donnie be healthy. Let's see Sadiq be healthy. Let's not have any major injuries, So
Hopefully not. And hey, good start with Sadiq White now back
Yeah.
and healthy for Syracuse, and he should be active for tomorrow's game against Division II Pace in the final exhibition game for Syracuse basketball. Now, coming up, I'll give you my question that I still have for Syracuse basketball. So stick with us here on Locked On Syracuse. College football is here, and hey, I couldn't be more excited about the ending of this season. The tailgates, the rivalries, energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real for a moment. Actually getting tickets can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. I mean, you got endless queues, hidden fees, and my personal favorite, wink, wink, is prices magically jumping at checkout. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you're going to pay. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Locked On Syracuse, I'm Jackson Holzer. That's Neil Adler from Inside the Loud House. And hey, thank you so much for making it to this point of Locked On Syracuse. And if you haven't done so already, please feel free, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It helps the channel grow to reach all Syracuse Orange fans. And we left off this podcast by stating that my big question for Syracuse basketball. So you ready for it, Neil?
Of course.
All right, here we go. My big question for Syracuse basketball is, do they have killer instinct?
Okay.
Because my one critique really of Syracuse is the fact that they nearly coughed up a big lead in the second half to Buffalo in an exhibition game. And as I keep pointing out here on Locked On Syracuse, it was not because, Autry, he's just using a bunch of different lineups trying to figure everything out. No. The people that were most responsible for this lead being blown were the starters. That's who blew the lead for Syracuse basketball. Now, I will give them credit. They did go on a mini 6-0 run to end the game, so they still won by 10. But this was an example of a game where you have a big lead in the second half, and then you allow the team to come back. You still win, which is nice. We'll take a win. But because you lack that killer instinct, you let your team back in the game. And now that win, which looked like it was going to be a great win for Syracuse, all of a sudden it hurts you. And for those that don't understand what I mean by how can a win hurt you, all of this stuff factors into all these advanced metrics that on Selection Sunday come March, that these decision makers on the committee are going to come together. They're going to pool all these things together to try to figure out which teams belong in March Madness and which teams, quite frankly, don't belong in March Madness. It's obviously not a perfect science, but that's just the system that we have. And instead of complaining about the system, we got to try to figure out how to actually beat the system. So one way to beat the system is when you play a team that is bad, that is not supposed to be good, you are expected to beat that team by a significant margin. It's not enough just to win by 10 against a team like Buffalo that was rated 329 in KenPom. If this was a regular season game, you got to win that game by 25-30, especially when you have a big lead in the second half. So it all goes back to this. Does Syracuse basketball this year have the killer instinct that they have not shown that they've had over the past couple of seasons? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Certainly, the last couple of years, they've had games where they played better, higher quality competition where they got blown out, or it was close, and then they, kind of fell apart late. But then there was also games where, they don't punch the other team in the mouth, so to speak, and just put them away. I mean, we talk about that with Syracuse football sometimes too. It happens to all teams. It's not just a Syracuse thing. But yes, I totally agree. And I know we're in the era where, obviously it's all about making the NCAA tournament, and there's metrics, and there's KenPom, and there's quadrants, and there's net ratings, and there's efficiencies, and I get all that stuff. I definitely feel like Syracuse this year, and I think they're going to win 21 or 22 regular season games, but it would be nice to see them put away teams so they're not sweating it, and the fan base isn't sweating it at the end of the game. And yes, it's definitely better, especially like you said, against a team that's way down in Ken Palm or the net or whatever. And especially if it's at home, like that's a quadrant, 3 or 4, most likely a 4 actually. So they got to win those games big. And I know the mentality isn't just, oh, we just got to blow people out. I mean, I know their focus is winning games and playing well, but I think if they do both of those things, that'll take care of itself. I don't know if it's like a question of, this always used to drive me nuts, Jackson, not to go on a tangent here. This used to drive me nuts with Jim Boeheim, and I love Jim Boeheim. I'm a late 90s Syracuse guy, old school Big East. I love Boeheim. But when they had leads of like, it could have been double digits or maybe it wasn't double. Maybe it was like 6 points or 8 points with like a handful of minutes left. And they would just play stall ball offense. I absolutely hated that. And I get it. You want to take time off the clock. I totally understand that. But when you just sit there at the top of the key and hold the ball, or like you end up turning it over or getting a bad shot, getting no offensive rhythm. And like, yeah, I know you want to take air out of the ball, so to speak, a little bit, but like keep your flow going. Like, put the hammer down, just like absolutely crush them. Like, and it's a game, especially in college basketball, it's a game of runs. I get that. That's why their transition defense has got to be solid. They got to be better taking care of the ball, and they got to be good communicators on defense. And because didn't Buffalo hit like a handful of threes right near the end to like make it?
The last 3 that cut it down to 4 was particularly egregious because I believe it was one of those cases where I forgot who, it might have been William Kyle. He stepped or he rotated over to help. Right. And JJ Starling was supposed to cover for him at the top of the key. And he just flat out missed an assignment. He just left the guy wide open. Right. It really was one of those mistakes you look at and you say, like, that just can't happen when these games actually matter. Like you can't have that. I understand it's the point of exhibition is like, look, like you can learn from those mistakes and they don't matter. Like you can make, that's the time to make the mistake. But I've seen that mistake in regular season games with him. Sure. And I've seen it with the whole, that's why I went on yesterday and I was like, I have 8 different examples of very similar games to what we witnessed against Buffalo that were games that actually mattered.
Right.
And that's why I'm like reluctant to give the team the benefit of the doubt from it. It was the starters that ultimately blew this game, or nearly blew the game, I should say. They recovered and they got it done. But Neil, you brought up Jim Boeheim. You know why that's really fascinating that you brought it up?
Because I'm old?
No. It's because when you win 25 to 30 games a year and you're a lock for the NCAA tournament,
then it don't matter.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you beat Buffalo by 10 versus beating them by 30. It doesn't matter because you're going to win a ton of games anyway. Who cares where you are in the Ken Palmer net? Because you're so good, you're going to beat other teams in the ACC. You're going to you can go on the road and you can beat Duke. You can go on the road and beat Louisville. Or you can play in Vegas and beat a Houston or beat a Kansas, right? You can be not only be competitive, but you can win those games. That's what Syracuse used to do. So you can get away with, we had a bad stretch against Buffalo. Okay, it doesn't really matter because you're supposed to be good. You had a bad stretch. You're gonna be really competitive with Houston, but we don't know that yet with Syracuse basketball.
No.
And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think anyone really has Syracuse. Even the most optimistic Syracuse fans, I don't think anyone has them definitively in the NCAA tournament. I think most people are saying they're going to be on the bubble. And if you're on the bubble, well, your Ken Palm ranking matters. Your net ranking matters. Your whatever metric matters. Yep. I guarantee you, Neil, that if this was a regular season game, Syracuse at 68 in Ken Palm, Buffalo at 329 in Ken Palm, at the end of this game with a 10-point win, Syracuse would have fell in the Ken Palm rankings. They would have fallen.
Probably.
They might not have fallen that much, but they would have fallen. And it compounds together because if you do in the next game against, I don't know, they're going to play Stonehill this year. Well, if you have a 10-point win against Stonehill, you'll fall down in a few more spots. Like you'll just keep falling and you'll put yourself in a hole.
We've talked all those non-conference games that aren't Vegas, that aren't Tennessee coming to the Dome, like all the other ones. I don't remember exactly how many they are. They have to blow these teams out. And again, it's about playing well. And if you play well, assumably you'll blow them out anyway. But like you're right, because they've got Houston and Kansas and Tennessee, and what do they play? Drexel in Philadelphia, but they have St. Joe's at the Dome now instead of
Vegas. They have a third game in Vegas, which we know.
Third game, right? But then all those other like Binghamton, Stonehill, they got to take care of all those teams handedly.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with you, brother. I agree.
It's not enough. It's not enough to win by 10 if
I know
you're going to have a hard time against Houston, Kansas, or Tennessee. Now, look, if you're Syracuse, you are allowed to be competitive and win those games. You're allowed to. You're on the floor as well. So if you want to make it up by beating Houston or beating a Tennessee,
do that.
You know what? All is forgiven if you only beat, a Buffalo in the regular season by 10 points because your Ken Palm ranking will skyrocket after that. Your net ranking will skyrocket. So there are ways around it. But I'm looking at it and saying it's hard for almost any team to be competitive against Houston, to beat Kansas. I mean, Kansas has Darren Peterson. I mean, did you watch Darren Peterson in that exhibition game? He looks amazing.
I didn't, but I mean, Syracuse had offered him, so I wrote about him a little bit, but I followed him his last couple of years in prep school, and he could be a National Player of the Year candidate without question. He's amazing.
and it's going to be hard to beat him. Like, we're playing him. Unless barring injury, we're playing that guy. Hope he's an off day, I guess. Because he's very capable of winning that game essentially by himself. But anyways, Neil, any last thoughts?
No. I'm looking forward to appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to Pace on Wednesday and then Binghamton on Monday. And let's get this party started, man.
I'm with you, Neil. I wish the regular season would actually start tomorrow instead of an exhibition game. Where can people find you on social media?
Thanks for asking, brother. I'm at Damn Twin on Twitter, and Inside the Loud House is Loud House FS. Appreciate you.
Awesome, Neil. Thank you so much for joining me here on today's edition of Locked On Syracuse. Now, coming up on Locked On Syracuse in the near future, we have scheduled a crossover episode with the host of Locked On Tar Heels, Isaac Shade. Yes, we are both going to talk about our miserable football teams ahead of this matchup on Friday night. So, hey, it should be fun. We're all going to be having a grand old time because somebody has to win the Syracuse North Carolina game. Of course, Wednesday night, there's the exhibition game against Pace. Hopefully, there will be a mini post-game reaction show to that. And then on Thursday, we have Syracuse basketball fan reaction show. So plenty of more content coming your way here on Locked On Syracuse. And folks, thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this podcast, be sure to hit that like button. If you really enjoy the podcast, be sure to hit subscribe. Tell all your friends about Locked On Syracuse. We'll see you all again soon.